So what if I told you Pokemon has been deceiving us for nearly 30 years, but nobody seems to realize it? Allow me to demonstrate with a little game. I'll describe a Pokemon game, and you tell me which one I'm talking about. You start in a tiny town, pick a fire, water, or grass starter, battle 8 gyms, fight an evil team with ridiculous outfits, catch a legendary Pokemon, beat the Elite Four, roll credits. If you said Pokemon Red, you're right. If you said Pokemon Sword and Shield, you're also right. If you said literally any mainstream Pokemon game in the last 30 years, you're still right. And that right there is the problem. At this point, Pokemon isn't a game. It's a scientific study in brand loyalty. Game Freak has been running the same experiment for 3 decades. They release the same game with slightly different colors, sprinkle in a few new Pokemon that look like rejected barn animals from Old MacDonald, add a gimmick that will be thrown away in 3 years, and profit. And yet somehow it keeps working for them. This formula is ancient. Red and Blue created it, Gold and Silver polished it, and then Game Freak took a victory lap so long they forgot to keep making an actual RPG. Every generation is the same. You battle 8 gyms, a villainous team that looks like Spirit Halloween employees on a break, and a legendary encounter that has all the difficulty of mashing A through a cutscene. Sword and Shield cut half the Pokedex, removed actual features people liked, and we still bought it. Scarlet and Violet was so broken that the trainers were phasing through the floor like they unlocked their ghost form, and it still became the fastest selling Switch game of all time. At this point, Game Freak could release another Pokemon Hyper Ultra Mega Violet game, change nothing but the shade of green on the trees, slap another unnecessary Pikachu variant into the mix, and fans would still be lining up at midnight, foaming at the mouth, arguing over whether the firefighting starter is actually unique this time. Spoiler? It won't be. That's not to say that Game Freak is the only one to blame here. Nintendo deserves its fair share of side-eye too. Because while Pokemon's stagnation is a design choice, the hardware limitations of Nintendo consoles aren't doing it any favors either. It's like Nintendo keeps handing them a graphing calculator and expecting them to make an open-world RPG. Nintendo has always prioritized quirky gimmicks over raw power. It's why the Switch, despite being one of the best-selling consoles of all time, also has the processing power of a toaster with a Pikachu sticker on it. But wait! Pokemon has changed, right? Game Freak introduces new flashy mechanics every generation, so they must be innovating, right? Unfortunately, Game Freak treats battle mechanics like seasonal DLC, hyped up, marketed like it's revolutionizing Pokemon, and then yeeted into the abyss as soon as the next game drops. They don't build on ideas, they cycle through them like a battle gimmick slot machine, hoping nobody notices they've been selling us the same core game for 30 years. Take Mega Evolutions from Pokemon X and Y. For a brief, glorious moment, battles actually felt fresh. Charizard, being Game Freak's favorite child, got 2 Mega Forms. Because of course it did. It was the first time the series felt like it was actually building something. So naturally, Game Freak threw it in the trash the moment Sun and Moon rolled out. No send-off, no explanation, just gone. Now we have Terratalizing in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And for once, it actually had some real strategic depth. Changing a Pokemon's type mid-battle adds all kind of mind games. Flipping weaknesses, baiting out moves, actually makes battles feel unpredictable for the first time in forever. It's the first gimmick in years that feels like it can actually stick around. But it won't. Because why build on something when you could scrap it and sell the next big gimmick instead? But Pokémon Z-A just confirmed that it's breaking the trend by resurrecting a fan favorite. Mega Evolutions are back. So that's progress, right? Well, if you thought Pokemon's gameplay was getting stale, the designs aren't exactly helping it either. We went from legendary creatures rooted in mythology to, well, whatever this thing is. Early Pokemon designs felt like they had weight, like they belonged in their world. But these modern designs? It's starting to feel like Game Freak is just running out of ideas and slapping googly eyes on household objects. Think back to Gen 1, when Pokemon felt iconic. Charizard, inspired by traditional European dragons, felt like a powerhouse. Gengar was a mischievous shadow demon, tying into Japanese folklore about yokai. Even Pokemon based on animals like Arcanine, Lapras, and Scyther felt like larger-than-life versions of real creatures, as if they had naturally adapted to their world. But now, it's like they're not even trying. For instance, Lechonk. Lechonk's a pig. Not a flaming hellbore ramping through the ruins of lost civilization. Not a steel-plated warhog charging into battle like a medieval battering ram. Just a pig. It's as if Game Freak saw a barnyard and said, yep, that'll do. Sure, the name is funny, but when your Pokemon sounds like it was pulled from a meme generator, maybe it's time to rethink the creative process. Then there's Bidoof. I don't know why, but this Pokemon bothers the hell out of me. It's just a beaver. I know it's an early zone Pokemon and it isn't supposed to be anything special, but come on. I don't know if it's the design or that it has Doof in its name, but I really hate this thing. I'll take a Rattata over Bidoof any day. At least that evolves into Eradicate. Bidoof's evolution looks like it's even confused on why it exists. Poltergeist at least tries to be creative, but at the end of the day, it's still just a haunted teapot. Ghost possessing objects can be cool, sure, but when that object is something you'd find in your grandma's china cabinet, it feels less like an ancient entity and more like Game Freak ran out of ideas while browsing a thrift store. And then there's Vavroom, a Pokemon that is literally a car engine. That's it, just a freaking car engine with eyes. We've gone from mythical beast to sentient auto parts? At this rate, I fully expect the next DLC to introduce a Pokemon that's just a Roomba with anxiety. So, if Pokemon barely changes, why does every game still sell over 10 million copies? Well, because we're absolute shameless, nostalgic fools. We see the game repackaged every few years and go, ooh, new legendary, before slamming down $60. But we keep buying the new games like a Cubone hoping its mom will come back. But then there's good old FOMO, because let's be real, Pokemon is a social event. It's not just about the game, it's about the experience of suffering through it, together. Everyone's talking about it, making memes, speedrunning the inevitable glitches, and we just have to be a part of it. And then there's brand loyalty, but at this point, it's more like Stockholm Syndrome. We've spent years catching, trading, and battling, and now we're just in too deep. Pokemon just isn't a franchise, it's a lifelong commitment we never actually agreed to, kind of like a cult. Other monster catching games have tried to step up like Palworld, but none have reached Pokemon's level of recognition. It might have something to do with Nintendo suing anyone who tries to compete with their cash cow, but also because we fear change almost as much as Game Freak does. We stay in our comfort zone, happily catching our 57th Pikachu variant like it's some life-changing event. And because of all this, Game Freak doesn't need to change. They could release Pokemon cardboard and styrofoam and we'd still be lining up outside at midnight for a copy. Sword and Shield cut half the Pokedex, and we bought it anyways. Scarlet and Violet launched what felt like a beta test, and it still became the fastest selling Switch game ever. We see the flaws, we meme about them, we complain online, and then we pre-order the next one anyways. For a game that is about evolving, Pokemon hasn't actually evolved, because we never actually asked it to. We keep showing up, hoping for something groundbreaking, and instead, we settle for slightly different colored trees and a new hat for Pikachu. And as long as we keep handing over our money, Game Freak has no reason to change. We have no one to blame but ourselves. Pokemon Legend Arceus gave us a glimpse of what the series could be, but will Game Freak ever fully commit? Probably not, because at the end of the day, they don't have to. We'll still be there picking our starter, battling 8 gyms, and buying the next version. And that's why Pokemon will never change. So, will you be playing the next Pokemon game? What was your favorite in this series? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like this video, you might enjoy this one over here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in line for the next Pokemon game.